Welcome to our Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast of the Public Engagement Initiative, Suffrage, Race, Power, Black Women Unerased.
Unerased, unerased, lift up Black women today. 100 years of pain, suffrage, and sorrow. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's time to honor those erased from her story. It's time to rise and take our place. In this moment, we won't be erased. Time to rise, time to rise. Stand in our power today.
I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of SRP Unerased. Our theme song, A Black Woman's Love Song, features LaTosha Brown on vocals and Glenn Pearson on piano. Join our podcast host, Washington Informer publisher Denise Rollard Barnes, with Kimba Smith and Romarilyn Ralston. But first, insights on navigating the bars beyond the cage.
Black women have been the epicenter of pain as it pertains to justice in America from the very beginning. Even before the mid-2000s, when we realized that the numbers of women going to prison was increasing at the rate of 700%.
In 2018, 5 million people voted yes on second chances. Amendment 4 actually got more votes than any candidate on the ballot. Once we passed the constitutional amendment and was able to restore the voting rights to 1.4 million citizens, it was the largest expansion of voting rights since the women's suffrage movement. It was the largest expansion of voting rights also since the changing of age to 18 in America. But at the same time, people still face barriers.
Incarceration for yourself often means incarceration for you and your family.
When you think about women who are coming home from prison, I heard the stories and saw firsthand women were not able to engage with their children.
The impact of incarceration, reentry on my children was very hard. They were left without a mom. It was like a death, but not a death. You can't call them, you can't see them, you can't visit them, you can't have a day in the park or a day in the shopping mall with them. It was almost like that same death over and over and over again for 20 years.
Black girls are pushed into the criminal justice system through a variety of means that erase their identities, make them feel isolated and excluded, move them into juvenile detention systems, and then into criminal justice systems.
It's very difficult to get a job. It's very difficult to get housing. And I wanted my program to be a place where I can look at a resume and just say, can you cook? Can you mentor? Can you talk about your experience? Would you like to be able to dance and tell your story? And help women to be able to find that place where they can get employed.
The idea that there is this American dream, this exceptional, everyone has equal opportunity to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps in America, fundamentally at least start with a pair of boots.
Only way we're able to change those policies is by being able to change the policymakers. And the way we do that is by showing up to vote. Looking forward to returning citizens having a voice. No matter what's happening with the poll tax, we know that our people are resilient and that they're going to show up. And where other people see obstacles, we see opportunities. My name is Sheena Mead, and I'm the Managing Director for the Clean Slate Initiative.
My name is Sharon Richardson, and I am the owner of Just So Catering, a justice-involved catering company, and I'm also the founder and CEO of a 501c3 called Reentry Rocks.
My name is Vivian Nixon, and I am the Executive Director of College and Community Fellowship in New York City.
Honey,
Now that we've heard insights on navigating the bars beyond the cage, let's begin our conversation. It's a pleasure to host two dynamic guests at our kitchen table. They both have a lot to say about navigating the bars beyond the cage and the prospects of expanding life chances of formerly incarcerated women by truly giving them the rights of full citizenship.
Hi, my name is Romarilyn Ralston. I'm the program director for Project Rebound at Cal State University Fullerton and an organizer for the California Coalition for Women Prisoners.
Hi, I'm Kimba Smith-Pradia, author, consultant, public speaker.
Welcome, sisters, to the kitchen table. Both of you shared lived experiences of being stripped of your liberty and your citizenship, but both of you were able also to rebound and find meaningful paths and careers after release. So let's open this conversation by reflecting on how your experience of incarceration has put you both on your current paths to advocate for formerly incarcerated people, most of them not afforded second chance opportunities. Marilyn, I think I'll start with you first.
Well, thank you so much. That's a really great question. My experiences with incarceration go back quite a ways. I was incarcerated at age 24 in 1988, and I served 23 years in prison at the California Institution for Women in Corona, California. My experiences inside the prison system with leadership roles and activism, resistance, and access to higher education, I think is what shaped who I am today. My involvement with community organizations like the California Coalition for Women Prisoners gave me a voice and an opportunity to utilize my lived experience with incarceration to give back to women who are currently incarcerated, gender nonconforming individuals, and trans people. So the work I do now and my lived experience enables me to share my journey with higher education, the work that I do with Project Rebound at Cal State University Fullerton, and some really amazing organizing work with activists and organizations across the state of California, pushing sentencing reforms and other criminal justice policies through the California legislature.
Wow, thank you. Kimba, what about your experiences?
I spent 6.5 years in federal prison. Even though I was sentenced to 24.5 years, I was very fortunate to receive an act of mercy from the United States President, Bill Clinton, at that time. But prior to my incarceration, I was a college student and ended up getting in a relationship that ended up being abusive and led me down this path to prison. And so since my release, it's been really important for me to be transparent about that experience, about some of the choices that were made to prevent other young people from the school to prison pipeline. It was important for me to advocate and continue to be a human face for people to understand just how easy it is to get caught up in drug conspiracy, drug laws. It wasn't just about me. It was about the fastest growing population within prison at that time were Black women. And they had hoped that my case would set a precedent for others. When I came out, there wasn't a lot of people talking about criminal justice reform, and it wasn't the topic to talk about. And there was no bipartisan support. I believe it's what's led me to have the opportunity to serve on the Virginia Parole Board, because they understood the importance of having an impacted person at the table that could bring a different perspective to some of our decisions. So that's pretty much how my incarceration has led me to the work that I'm doing today. It was always important to spiritually be connected and to basically have faith in the unseen, because I didn't know how my situation would turn around. I gave birth to my son while I was incarcerated, and I wasn't supposed to be released until he was a grown man. I had to refuse to believe that, and I had this spiritual groundedness. I made a commitment with other women that we would do what we could do from behind the bars to not only improve ourselves, but to plan for the future, even though we didn't know what the future was going to be. I believe we all have that innate resiliency as a culture, as a people, that even though we're facing tough times, and plenty of people, I'm sure they told Romarilyn the same thing, like, how did you make it through this?
And Romarilyn, how about yourself?
Most of the other Black women in the prison, many of them were serving life sentences, life without the possibility of parole, virtual life sentences. And we realized that our survival was dependent upon all of our survival. So we organized and we were able to get approved the African American Women Prisoners Association. So we created an organization within the prison specifically designed around Black culture, African American history, Black women's issues. And we were able to get a deeper understanding about who we are as Black women, what was happening in our communities with drugs and crime. And we push back against some of those representations and some of those tropes that exist around who Black women are. And in 92, when the civil unrest in Los Angeles happened after the police officers were acquitted from beating Rodney King, we stepped up. We raised money in the prison. We collected canned food and we donated clothing to the greater Los Angeles area to be a part of what was happening to our people. And we started to then think about how we could push legislation and drive the conversation around women in prison. Those connections just helped us to see ourselves free. And eventually, the prison gates started to open. So as we started coming home back to our communities and started to get involved, we continued to do that work. So to listen to the work that Kimba's been able to do and just reflect on my own experiences, it's just really exciting to know that now the conversation is about women. Formerly incarcerated and incarcerated women are now leading progressive criminal justice reforms in this country.
A lot of the women who are incarcerated are mothers. And so for us, it was also just remaining strong mentally, physically, spiritually for our children and not to lose hope that eventually we would come home to our children.
I think it's important to make sure that we center the voices of those who are currently incarcerated in our movement work, because things have changed since I've been released 9.5 years ago. COVID's here, conditions are different, the types of policies and regulations have changed, and we've been able to make changes. But someone currently incarcerated now, I think, have more opportunities to be heard today than I did when I was incarcerated, because we weren't thinking about centering the voices of those inside.
In our mashup, we heard from a survivor of partner abuse coming to terms with trauma. She talked about the barriers beyond the cage.
Yes, for me, because of my own personal experience in turning myself in pregnant, medical treatment that women are receiving needs to be analyzed, and also the bond bail issue and pretrial. And for me, I ended up giving birth to my son while I was incarcerated because the judge denied me bond. Even though I was no legitimate threat to public safety, I was forced to give birth to my son. And 5 minutes after I gave birth to him, the U.S. Marshals came into my room and said that my leg had to be handcuffed and shackled to the bed at all times while I was there. And after my 2-day hospital stay, I can remember going through depression, not being able to breastfeed, and my breast being engorged and being in pain. But consciously in my mind, which seems so inhumane, I knew that I wasn't going to physically touch, smell, feel my son again because I was in county jail and there was no physical contact.
And what about reentry? Once you were released, did you find that there were any barriers to reentry that you think were unique to women specifically?
With regard to employment and housing, With employment, you can't be in nursing or cosmetology in certain states because a felony offense prohibits you from going into those professions. Also, with regard to housing, you can't have anyone that has a drug conviction in public housing, and they can't have a relationship with someone that has a felony conviction either.
Marilyn, how about yourself?
In California, formerly incarcerated people are not able to vote until they are released from supervision. They have to be off of parole before they're able to vote. So this year on our ballot, we have Proposition 17, which will restore the vote to about 60,000 people who are currently on parole. So that's one issue. The bail issue, very important to our community and specifically for Black mamas. We are usually very underpaid in our communities. Employment is really difficult to find when you have a criminal record. There's about 48,000 barriers for formerly incarcerated people to overcome after release. It's unbelievable the things that we have to consider. Getting an ID card so that you can get medical care, so that you can be eligible for food stamps or for you to get housing or be able to apply for an education program or vocational training. The issues go on and on and on. Housing and mental health care. Two very big issues when it comes to reentry for women. 90% of women who are serving time in prisons and jails have histories of trauma and abuse, sexual violence, especially when it comes to Black trans women and gender nonconforming women. Housing is very hard to find for this group. It's hard to find for women, period, in the reentry community because there's just so many organizations that cater towards men because there's more incarcerated men, and trying to place us in quality jobs based on our lived experiences, what we've learned in prison, is also another issue that's extremely hard for us to be able to make a living so that we can try to get our kids back, to get housing where we can afford to take care of our children, to overcome some of the shame and embarrassment that our kids may have because of our incarceration.
Yes.
There's so many biases that exist around who we are. And oftentimes we're just not given the opportunity that other women are given, especially white women.
I want to segue to the topic of education because in our Just Saying segment, it has been said that the K through 12 educational system is the entryway for Black girls to be primed and tracked into the criminal legal system. As someone who creates opportunities in higher education, Marilyn, speak to that.
The school to prison pipeline is real. Black bodies are disciplined in the education system, especially K through 12. A lot of our young girls are handcuffed and thrown to the ground by officers in the school that are supposed to make sure that they're safe. They treat them very violently. And it's so difficult for Black mamas to take care of their kids, especially those who are formerly incarcerated. We're not able to spend the quality time with our kids, helping them to navigate the school system. Sometimes we're not able to provide healthy meals for our kids because we don't get the same wages as other races and other ethnic groups do. Our kids are not getting the nutrition that they need, and they're not getting the time with us that they need. So the school system oftentimes becomes a space where teachers may have to step in to provide additional support. And many of our inner city schools are underfunded. Too many children in their rooms are young Black girls. We're marked in this attitude that we're sassy and smart mouth and ghetto and not worthy or deserving of dignity and respect. So we're treated very harshly, not just by the education system and those who discipline us inside of those systems, but oftentimes our classmates. So we really need to look at how Black women are framed within this society. A lot of the structural racism that happens with our society is due to the school system not having the support that they need and parents in the community not having access to resources.
I was going to ask you, Kimber, to weigh in.
It became very apparent for me early on when my son saw me playing with a baby when he was at basketball practice and he stopped mid-court and was staring and I didn't know why. And after practice, I asked him what was going on and he told me, "Mom, I never saw you playing with a baby before." And it made me think about how you would have been with me. That made me understand the importance of therapy and working through some of those emotions and issues. I was able to provide for my son. I had my parents where I was living under their roof when I first came home, and so grateful to have had their support. But I know a lot of women coming out don't have that. And that is probably one of the biggest reentry struggles amongst all the things that Marilyn said, as far as having a good job and just being able to take care of themselves and have a roof over their head. The overall objective with those items is that women want to be reunited with their children and try to fight to gain custody as it relates to Black girls and the overcriminalization of their behavior. When we think about the historical context of everything, I just remember at my sentencing hearing, you would have thought that the expert testimony from two psychologists with regard to the domestic violence and abuse, that my 86-year-old judge would have taken some of that into context. People that were in the court wrote letters that the fact that they witnessed him sleeping on his bench while this expert testimony was going on. So that's something that's not even taken into consideration when women and girls are even put in these positions of the trauma that they may have experienced even before being convicted of a crime. But I remember my judge saying he wanted to use me as a deterrent to others. And when we think about our history, from lynchings and various things that have happened, they want to use our bodies to create fear in other people.
You both were very young when you, quote unquote, got in trouble. And today, what would you say to your younger self that might help other young Black women to navigate a path dotted with racial and gender roadblocks?
I would just say to my younger self and to the young ladies out there, just to value yourself, value your dreams, your goals, where you want to go in life. Self-worth is so important. And for me, I know that I didn't understand my own worth in loving me and understand our culture and the resiliency in our people. And no matter what you're going through, seek and find light and hope in knowing our history and how far we've come. I think about how I was a young college girl and I was so focused on this relationship, but I wasn't registered to vote. So I would just encourage my younger self, young ladies, to be 100% politically engaged and understand that the people that we elect in office will determine your future and our nation's future.
Wonderful. And Marilyn?
I just say own your power. Realize that you have power and love that power. Love yourself. It has to start with us, regardless of the negative images that exist in this society about Black people, about Black women. Push back against those images. Don't give in to it. Uplift your community. Value the Black women around you, those who've come before you, those who will come after you. As Kimber said, get involved. Understand where your power is, where your power lies. Participate, definitely vote, and encourage others to do the same.
Thank you. We close this Kitchen Table episode and trilogy with our Culture Pop segment, Here's Keep On by vocalist Art R.A.
Tough times don't last long. You gotta keep on, keep on, keep on. You are much stronger than you know, you know, you know, you know. The sun doesn't shine all the time. Shining, shining. You gotta have the rain to help you grow. Every day is a battlefield. Feels like the world is after you. You gotta put your armor on. You will make it through. Tough times don't last long. You gotta keep on, keep on, keep on. You are much stronger than you know. You know, you know, you know. Tough times don't last long. You gotta keep on, keep on, keep on. You are much stronger than you know. You know, you know, you know. I know it's been crazy, but you can't lose the pride in what you have and who you are. Continue to fight. I know that it's worn you down. You gotta fight to survive. You are something special. Continue to shine. Tough times don't last long. You gotta keep on, keep on, keep on. You are much stronger than you know. You know, you know, you know. Tough times don't last long. You gotta keep on, keep on, keep on. You are much stronger than you know. This is our moment to tell our story. How we offered our gifts without glory. Through the pain and the fears, the trial and the tears. Despite the veil, we did not fail. Unerased black women, unerased black women. Our story must be told, the wisdom we hold. Stand in our power, unerased.
Thanks for listening to Kitchen Table Talks, a podcast made possible by support from Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Groundswell Fund, the TD Charitable Foundation, and anonymous donors. Special thanks to producers Carolyn Malachi, Tarakan Gross, Levi Perrin, and Volubility Podcasting. We had help from Javita Hill, Rosemary Neely, and Linda Jackson Leslie. I'm Gwen McKinney, creator of Suffrage Race Power, Black Women Unerased, inviting you to tune in to our next episode of Kitchen Table Talks and visit us online at srpunerased.com.